I'm Piers Linney and this is Scale Up. I really believe that there's huge potential to create value through collaborations between large companies or large enterprises and small businesses or even startups. So you've got the large companies, let's call them big companies for the purposes of this video. They've got customers, processes, resources, distribution. And smaller businesses, they're nimble, they can respond to dynamic markets, changing trends and customer feedback really quickly. They tend to be more innovative and they can attract and develop better talent. However, partnering with big companies is not easy and it often leads to failure and frustration. I know because I've been there. I've sold to and I've partnered with FTSE 100 companies. These are like your Fortune 500s in the US, sometimes successfully and other times it's led to time-consuming and expensive failures, despite the best efforts of literally everyone involved. Collaborations range from supplier and customer relationships to product development, to sales and marketing, to distribution and licensing. So in this video, I'm going through my 6 C's, the 6 things that you need to consider very carefully before enjoying any collaboration with a big company. I'm also going to add another bonus C at the end of the video, if you keep watching, which although it's more subtle, being aware of it can make a material difference to your chance of securing opportunities and also then making them work. So if that sounds of interest, please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. So let's get into it. These are 6 things any startup or small business needs to consider to work successfully with a big company. Now, it doesn't really matter what the relationship is, although my 6 C's are relevant to commercial relationships where time, money and energy will be invested and some sort of economic return is expected by both parties. Now, I've got great experiences and really terrible experiences of working with large enterprises, ranging from some of the world's biggest telcos to multinational consultancies, some of the world's largest software companies. Even if you're responding to a tender and you win it, you need to factor in my 6 C's into the process, the relationship, afterwards, and this is to avoid costly and resource sapping engagements that end up going nowhere. So on paper, it makes huge sense to combine the innovation and speed of small businesses with the customers and distribution resources and even the data that big companies have. Although it is not easy, it certainly does not mean that you shouldn't try working with big companies. As a small business, there is huge potential, and my 6 C's are designed to enable you to enter into the relationship with your eyes open, reduce the risk and maximize your chance of success. Number 1, collaboration. Now, this may sound obvious, but there needs to be a real collaboration, a partnership. To make it work, you need to be entering into a partnership. So trying to engineer and be clever, some zero-sum game, it's not going to work. Even if you pull a fast one and you manage to talk a large, big company into something that is far more beneficial for you and your business than them, you run the risk of a personnel change or some internal review and a light being shone on your deal that results in it being changed or even summarily terminated. You need to create a collaboration, one where those working for the big company can see how it adds value to their business as you can see adding value to yours. A partnership, and you've said it before, where 1 and 1 equals more than 2. And that's the heart of the relationship. And even if you cover the other 6 C's I'm going through like a boss, and if you're not creating a fully collaborative relationship, then the wheels inevitably are going to fall off. Number 2, champions. People do business with people. This is the basic sales tactic, but you need to have champions for your business, champions for your product or service, and even champions for you, the sales director, the CEO, the founder. They will help you sell internally and will stick up for your business and you when it's required to overcome the inevitable challenges when they arise. The most important thing you need to remember, though, is you need more than one champion. You may spend 12 months engaging with a big company and even sign the deal and establish a great relationship with an internal, even senior champion, to wake up one morning and find they've moved on to the competition or another role, or they've even emigrated. And I've experienced all 3 scenarios as it happens all the time. Their replacement may have a different strategic plan or even just a different perception of the value of the relationship. They may already even be championing some of your competitors, which is a nightmare. Such shocks can be difficult to avoid, as sometimes whole layers of management can disappear in a big company reorganisation overnight with no notice. So to minimise the risk of losing your key relationships, you need to establish a matrix of contacts across big companies. I've sat in meetings where my team of 3 that can make all the decisions and make there and then, almost on the spot, have faced off to 15 even more people that arrange pre-meeting and take notes before the main meeting. You need senior champions to cut through the noise and avoid decisions being made by committee. This might include senior management, it might include the person your contact even reports to, and other people in different departments such as product, finance, commercial, procurement, engineering, or even sales. Explain that it's important that you do this for the very reason I've explained. And although you have to approach building relationships with somebody's boss quite carefully, because you might want to know why, don't take no for an answer. Number 3, commitment. If you know deep down that you're not committed to collaborating with this big company, or you sense that the big company you're talking to is just fishing for ideas, trying to find out what you're doing, then just walk away. You're wasting your time. Even a long and detailed tender process does not mean the large enterprise is necessarily committed. They are set up and have whole departments to commence, run and manage these processes. A big company can conduct an 18-month tender process and then walk away from the outcome before contracts are signed due to a change of strategy or even basic priorities. If you're not committed or even not just quite ready, then don't get sucked into an engagement to establish a relationship with a big company. You've got limited resource and the process will be costly and inevitably a huge distraction. Eventually this commitment is going to be captured in a contract, and contracts have consequences, which I'll be coming on to. Number 4, consequences. I've had businesses that have won very complex competitive tenders to provide services to very big companies, such as telcos, and we threw everything at the tender process to win it. We were assured that the opportunity was substantial and that the significant time, money and human resource we put into responding and winning the tender was basically an investment in an opportunity to generate substantial future revenues, as you'd expect. But there were no consequences for the big company, the partner, for not delivering on its side of the bargain. In that case, after over 3 years of work, they failed to even get the product to market, which caused a huge problem, as you can imagine. You need to have consequences for both parties in a relationship. A big company will no doubt ensure there are consequences for your business if you don't deliver. You need to make sure there's some consequences for the big company if they don't deliver too. Otherwise, you've got a collaboration that doesn't really lack balance and it won't work in the long term. A simple example would be a contractual revenue commitment by certain dates. This means that somebody in that big company will own a profit and loss with this cost running through it, and that needs to be covered at some point by revenue. So even if they leave, the person taking over their role they're likely to assume ownership of the cost and that revenue target too, so it survives on. You need to have some corporate memory. This goes back to commitment. If a large company, a big company, wants to work with a small company, a small business or startup, it should recognise that they have to deliver as well, and not just use their negotiating power and their lawyers and their standard contracts to transfer all the risks to their small business to their partner, just because they usually can. Now, this can be really hard to do, and I often ask myself, what would I have done now with the benefit of hindsight? But it is really important. If a large enterprise is not willing to accept any financial consequences for failure to deliver, then you've got to ask yourself whether they're really committed. Number 5, communication. Effective channels of communication are fundamental to the success of almost any business relationship, but this is especially the case when you're dealing with big companies. You will find that a lot of people need to be kept in the loop, and poor communications can lead to costly misunderstandings and delay. Relationships need to be managed from senior champions all the way down to those that are actually doing the work. And if the big company partner does not have a clear method of communicating with a small business partner or supplier, then you need to design one basically, and you need to make sure that that is captured in the contract and that it's realistic. Let's face it, the CEO of a multinational company isn't going to sit down with you for a catch-up over a smoothie every month. You've got to make this communication sort of framework realistic. And it's important to understand the inner workings of a big company and who communicates to who, what to whom and how issues are escalated, find out where the buck really stops. And it's important to set up and diarise these meetings and calls with each layer of seniority. And again, make sure there's a communication process embedded in the contract. Then hold people to these meetings and make sure you use that time to the maximum effect, because it's precious to these big companies. This is actually something that a small company can learn from a big company. They've typically spent in millions of pounds or dollars on creating effective communication channels. So to some extent you'll learn, but you're going to find you've got to fit into their framework, because trying to change these things will be hard and it's a battle you probably don't want to fight. Number 6, contract. Big companies have big lawyers. Big companies have big contracts and big standard form contracts, and it can be difficult to change these things, or at least that's what they'll tell you. You need to be very careful that you sign a contract that captures the essence of the relationship and my 6 C's, and which is fair. Don't just sign whatever's put in front of you because you can't believe that you've got your foot in the door of a potentially significant revenue opportunity. When it comes down to it, big companies can be ruthless, and it will not be due to any kind of personal malice. They also have shareholders and stakeholders to protect, and they employ professionals whose bonuses and jobs are based on doing exactly that. They have tried and tested contracts and the financial resources to follow through and go legal, which is something small companies typically can't afford in terms of financially, or in terms of the time it just soaks up. A common example is negotiating around liability. Don't just accept unlimited liability for mistakes, and make sure that liability flows in both directions. Another example is payment terms. If you've got suppliers expecting to be paid in advance or on 30 days, and a big company's forcing you to accept 120-day payment terms, then you need to have a frank conversation with them about how you bridge that working capital gap. Some have their own schemes to help small businesses, or you may be able to factor your debtor book, but that comes at a cost as well, and it can be hard to get out of factoring. If the big company is really committed and it really wants to collaborate with you, and you've got a great communications and champions and there's corporate memory built in, you should be able to avoid a one-sided agreement that may come back to haunt you. Use the best lawyers you can possibly afford, goes without saying, and go through the small print very carefully to make sure you understand it. You haven't just delegated it to a lawyer. At the end of the day, the whole deal will boil down to what's in the contract. A few years down the line, when you need to refer to the contract to clear up some kind of confusion, you may be dealing with completely different people in terms of anyone you've ever met when you started out, and an internal lawyer with several other issues to resolve that week, with whom you've got no history whatsoever. So that can be quite difficult. I've been on the wrong side of big companies' advisors and lawyers, and due to their scale and their on-tap resource, any small business partner is at an immediate disadvantage. You get one chance to ensure your position is as good as you can get it to be, and that is during the negotiation before you sign the contract. It can be tough to negotiate with big companies, but if the contract is unfair and does not reflect the relationship you envisaged, then you may need to walk away. So they were the 6 C's, the 6 things that you need to consider when you're working with a big company. But I did say that I would give you a bonus C, so here it is. Number 7, compensation. Now, in a small business, your team will probably multitask, and your goal can be, medium, long term, and simply to grow your business and perhaps, earn dividends or create equity value and sell it. In big companies, people have specific roles and jobs and responsibilities, and they are rewarded usually using complicated and quite detailed compensation or bonus schemes, and they can make a real difference to their annual income. So what that means is that these compensation schemes have a direct impact on behaviours. For example, if you sell red widgets and the plan is for the partner to sell them for you this year, and your key sales contact in a big company is for some reason being tasked with selling fewer red widgets this quarter and more green ones, then guess what? It doesn't matter what you do or how much you plead, they're going to be focused on selling green widgets that quarter to get recognition or perhaps a bonus or even a promotion. So the point of my 7C is that you need to understand the compensation plans of those that can impact the performance of your collaboration. And the best way to find out is simply just to ask. Explain that you want to help them be successful, and therefore you need to know what success looks like for them so you can both work on it together. So that is it. They're my 6 C's plus a bonus. You've got 7 in total. So follow them to maximize your chances of success when working with big companies. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one, and please hit the like button.